Hey guys, welcome back. This is the part 2 of the video UAD Moog MiniMoog. So now I have already talked about controllers, oscillators, mixer in the part 1 video. And now I'm going to talk about filters, which is envelope, the loudness contour, the amplitude, these and this, right? In this, I think the main two will be, or the three will be the filters, this loudness thing and this modulation. And in that, first I'm going to start with this cutoff, right? Let me just turn off everything apart from oscillator 1, right? Oscillator 1 is playing at 16 foot and at saw, right? And if I change this cutoff, it's just look at the waveform here, what's going to happen. It's basically going to reduce it, from the high to the low, right? And then this filter emphasis basically the resonance, where the end, like the as the cutoff is happening, the end part there's like a bump, right? Right, and then this amount of contour is going to define what's happening in attack, decay and sustain. As you can see, there's no release and there's no hold, but these three works fine. And like what's going to happen is, as this is going to make a shape, right? Attack and decay and a sustain, what's going to happen is this contour is going to define how big that shape will be. Okay, not in this, but like how much volume that shape will have, like the amount. Like listen to it. Now as you can hear, as I reduce the contour, what's happening is the sound have changed, but as I'm going to increase it, listen to the sound. Right now, the next one after that is the loudness contour, which is basically the amplitude, and it's like your a thing where whatever you're doing in this MIDI is gonna affect here, right? After that, after this, what's going to happen is there's like a button of decay. It's basically a release, or like I think it just changes the decay, it just changes. Listen to it. Right, so these are your modifiers or your filters and the amplitude, right? And after that, I'm going to talk about is the modulation, which is like, okay, apart from that, on the right side there's like volume, there's like the overall volume, and then there's a power. This is like your bypass, like basically turn in and off, right, your plugin. So now after that there's this modulation, and in that it's basically there are three parts I'm going to talk about here. Is the modulation mix, which have A and B, right? This is a knob which can rotate from A to B, and this A and B defines these, like the modulation mix sources. Like on the A there's like oscillator 3 and envelope, like already talked about this thing in the first video as well. But basically what's going to happen is oscillator 3 can be used as a modulation as well source, and this envelope basically this section, right, this filter modulation, you can see. So now at this moment it's turned to the oscillator 3 and the modulation is A, and A is oscillation. And as I'm going to change the modulation amount, listen to the sound what's happening. Right, as you can already hear, what's happening is like this is directly, you know, this link to here, and what's happening is since we're the low, the sound is like that. But if I come to the 32 foot or 16 or 8 or what it might be, we are gonna jump to the frequency modulation, which is your FM. And apart from that, there is this ramp up and ramp down, and as already talked in video 1 also, these things gonna have a significant impact on how your modulation is happening. Right, apart from that, this was the oscillator modulation, and then there's the envelope modulation, which is this one. Right, let me turn this off and turn this on. And now what's going to happen is these thing will be affecting this. Like, let me take it back to 0. As you can hear the sound, I just reduce it, you can hear what's happened. One more thing I would like to talk about is like this keyboard control will have a massive impact on how your modulations, like how your sound is changing, because just I think the second one, as you turn it on, it's, you know, the keyboard is gonna get wider in the sense like there will be like higher emphasis on how the frequency is changing. Like, just listen to it. This is the first one, and as I'm going to turn the second one, listen to the sound. Right, so this is majorly defined by what notes you'll be playing. Right, so this was your envelope modulation. Now let's jump to the B. I'm going to rotate it completely to the B, and then B have 3 types, which is noise, which is this one, like how the noise will affect the noise will be used in modulation. SH will sample and hold, and LFO. Let's go with noise. Let's see what happens in the noise one. So now as you can hear it, the sound is very different because now it's being used as a noise, you know, being used as a way of modulation. After that, then there is a sample and hold, which is basically, you know, just it's going to take a random sample as a hold, and you know, it's going to take a random sample as a hold. So it's like very jam. Let's listen to the sound, what happens. Right, after that the final one is LFO. LFO is here, right here. It have like 2 shapes, like triangle and square, and this is a mount. So what's going to happen is the knob, you're going to hear how the sound is changing. Right, let me just go back to 0 again. Right, as you're going to hear how the sound is changing depending on what I'm doing on the LFO, because it's being used as a modulation. Now let me jump to the feedback first. What's happening in this input external feedback? When you set the I cannot talk about external, but I can talk about feedback. What's going to happen is when this knob, I'm going to rotate this knob, and you're going to hear it's a set to feedback. Let me turn this on first. Right now it's just playing the basic sound, right? But as I'm going to turn the sound, listen to the sound, what's happening, and these overload light. Right, so basically what's happening here is this external input volume now is directly linked to the feedback, and the sound going is coming back into loop, and it's like feeding. And this is excellent way to distort and clip your sound, and to make it more harsher, or if you want to distorted sound. Apart from that, then there is this key mode where you have two options. One is a legato and re-trigger. What's going to happen in this is the first note you're going to hear at the full volume, like the full sound, and then second and third, like because it's already started, the sound is going to decrease even though this is here. Right now, if I set it to re-trigger, what's going to happen is it's going to re-trigger the whole shape every time. And then there is this one, like this is basically what's going to happen in the lowest, and the last one is, let me just take out this MIDI and let me put these key on the complete clip. Now what's going to happen is, right now we are set to the lowest. I've set to the lowest one. Now what's going to happen is, since this is going to be used as a way to define how the sound will be, what's going to happen is it's not gonna play anything which is above that note. Right, if you have heard it, the third note didn't get played. Right now, if I turn it to the last, so now this time it does not matter what a note it's gonna play. But it have a key different. That is, if I reduce this note now, listen to it, because this was a note that was played. Listen to what is gonna happen now. Right, so that means this one can be used as a way of just staying at like a pedal note or something like this, like at a one note, even if you jump around, but it will just keep on coming back to it. Like if even no matter how many notes I add, it's gonna come back to this first note, So with that, then there is like this one final part, which is your velocity. Velocity is basically gonna happen better if I had a MIDI controller, which I don't. But what's gonna happen is this velocity section is if you have velocity sensitive keyboard, what's gonna happen is, as you change the values of the knobs, cutoff, filter, and the loudness, what's gonna happen is, whatever the velocity you're playing your note at, right, since as you can see, I have like already set up the notes at a certain velocity, right? What's gonna happen is it's gonna play those notes, and it's gonna see what the velocity is happening there. Like here it's like 45, here it's like 93, here's like 121, and that's gonna define how the sound's gonna come out. Right, so that means if you have velocity keyboard, you're gonna enjoy it when playing a lead or any sounds in that, using that, and mess with this. So I will come to the end of this video. So in this, which I have like basically seen, you know, like this second half, like your filters, the amplitude, the final volume, and like everything, and like modulation sources, mix sources. Oh, one more thing I would like to tell you is, if you can see, this is A and B, but that means this is a knob which can rotate from A to B, right? So you can come even to the center where, you know, like if you keep it center, and now both of them can be used as a way of modulation. Right, so in that, you know, the modulation can be used from both. With that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.